Right, now let's go back to simulation and I will check these on. You noticed here three little icons. So these are the false icons. So if I add some assets like that, then I release the mouse button and wait for the simulation. It's using the scene gravity. Okay. If I uncheck this button and paint more assets, when I wait for the simulation, they will be simulated, but there is no gravity. Okay. So they will collide, but with no gravity. Let's turn it back on and talk about these two others. These are additional forces. So if you use the attract force and paint some assets, when you release the mouse button, they will be attracted to each other, like that. So they will be attracted to their average point. Okay, and what is great is now that we can affect values into the UI, we can change the force value directly during the simulation. So we can kind of mix between the scene gravity and the attract force to have the effect that we want. So if I put it to 0, we only have the scene gravity, but if I increase it, we have a bit of this force going on. So this above 0 is attraction, and below 0 is going to be repulsion. Okay. So let's uncheck this and let's try the explode force. So let's paint some assets, and when I release, they're just going to be projected away, so they will explode like that. Boom. Boom. Okay, and you can, if it's too much, you can just decrease the explode option here, the explode force, and it's make a smaller explosion. Okay, and you can do that without the scene gravity, of course, but if you will see that if you explode without gravity, it's going to just go away and never fall down. It's like if you exploded in space. Okay, so let's delete the assets. Okay, let's talk a bit more about the scene gravity itself. So this force value affects only attraction and explosion. What if you wanted to affect the scene gravity? You can go to the PhysX tab here, and you have control over the gravity over here. So if we paint assets and just use the scene gravity, they will fall down on the ground. Okay. And if we go here, we can affect the scene gravity. So we can put it to 0. So you see that they start to move away like if they were in outer space. And if you put gravity to a negative value, it's going to fall down. But if you put it to a positive value, they will start to move up, like if the gravity was inverted. And now they should fall down. Yeah, and bounce. Boom. Okay, so this is the scene gravity. You can also use a custom gravity object. So to do that, you go to the 3ds Max Forces and create a gravity object. And you can pick it here. So by default, its value is 1, but you should increase it quite drastically to have it work. I mean, it should depend on your scene units. So now if you paint assets, they will use the custom scene gravity, okay, and they will be projected here. And this scene gravity can be a spherical force as well, so whatever assets you paint, they will be attracted by this scene gravity here. Okay, so it's a bit like the attract force, but on a location you choose. And again, you can change here the value. Yeah, I think you understood the concept. And if you want to remove the scene gravity, you just press the X button here. While we are into the physics tab, you can see here some ground options. So in this scene, we have a ground mesh. So when we paint in here, we paint on the ground mesh, and when we simulate, it takes the ground mesh for collisions, okay? But what if I paint like that? Some of them are going to fall on the other side, okay, here, and you see that they still take the scene ground into account. So this is because of this option. But if you remove this, they will fall down to the infinity. Boom, they fall down. Okay, so you can just use the ground collision and change the height of the ground as well. So if your ground mesh here is below 0 and you have a height which is higher, they are going to explode when the simulation will start. Let's do a test. Show you here. So the assets are painted on the ground mesh. Maybe it's not high enough. Okay. Yeah, and when the simulation started, some assets were under the ground, the scene ground, and they just exploded. And you see that now, when they fall down the ground, the scene ground, which is above my ground mesh. So it depends on your assets and your scene. While we are talking about the physics and the forces, there are things that you can do here. Choose the force, change the force strength, choose the physics, and things that you can do from here. So use a custom gravity, change the acceleration of the gravity, change some ground parameters, and the contact distance between objects. But there are things that I didn't expose here because you don't touch them that much. So I have a button here to open the MassFX tools, which just open what you have here, MassFX utilities, show MassFX tools. And here you have all the controls you need over MassFX, which are not exposed here. So you can find the ground collisions back here, the gravity with the gravity acceleration here, and the axis of gravity. the gravity by force object. And here, this is very important. It's the iterations and substeps of your simulation. So if, for example, I put substeps to 0, and let's just remove these assets and select just some of them, like those. Okay. And so I set the substeps to 0. Let's put this away. And if I start to paint here, for example, okay, with something like that, maybe no rotations, and paint into these shelves, there might be some of them which goes through the surface of the shelf. Yeah, maybe not right now, but it definitely can happen. Okay, depending on the force of the gravity, depending on the size of the assets themselves. So increasing the substeps value is going to help that and try to avoid these penetration problems. So by default, when you start PhysX Painter, it sets the substeps to 2. Okay, so you don't really have to worry about that, but sometimes you can increase it or just put it to 0 if you want the simulation to be faster. Okay, so these are some other physics options. So these are to use acceleration. Here you can bake in keyframes. Well, you can do a lot of things. You can even change these assets. For now they're static, but you can change them back to dynamic and bake their animation, or do a lot of different things. Display the physical meshes used by MassFX as well. So yeah, this is just a reminder that you can access this as well to change something if anything goes wrong during your painting and simulation process. Yeah, that's it.